Have you ever looked at a photo of yourself smiling and was immediately reminded of that moment in time? The pain, the past, the pressure you endured? It's been said a photo holds 1,000 words, but can we fearlessly tell the truth and courageously open our heart vault of vulnerability to share those words? I'm your host, Takiya. Hey guys, what's up? It has been a minute, and I tell you what, I'm going to start off by saying that I did what I said I was not going to do, and what that was miss episodes. It's been about a month since I last recorded an episode, and my release schedule is every 2 weeks. I thought that I'd give myself grace, and 1 week I can have off and another week I can record and it wouldn't be a problem. But life has been lifing, okay? Where to start? I want to jump in because there's a lot I want to talk about, and I really didn't think this through as far as how I wanted to lay this out and talk about it. But in this episode, I want to just let you into my life, my present state. I've been posting pictures just at random of my smiles and talking about the things that I was enduring behind those smiles. And I want to be a little more present day right now, just to bring you up to speed on what happened with a couple of missed episodes and just really be vulnerable and be truthful and authentic. That is what this podcast is about, just sharing the truth behind the smile and pulling back the cover and the curtain. So it is now, gosh, it's the last week of February, like legit the last week of February, the 27th. This is a leap year. So we got 2 more days left and then we're March 1st. And what's so mind-boggling to me is that we're almost in the 3rd month of the year, and it feels so surreal because I feel like I've been set on this, not even a roller coaster, but this cycle that I want to get off of. It feels so surreal. I still feel like I'm processing the new year coming in, and I still feel stuck like it's January, but it's not. And let me try to explain that. So December 31st, we're all always, well, not all of us, but for the most part, many of us are, whether it's an excitement or just an exhaustion and ready to be done with the old year and press into the new year, or excited about the new year and grateful for the old year. There's a definitive mark on when the new year comes in. And so December 31st, I was just ready to get out of 2023. I just was ready. I was looking for that 1 second difference, because that's literally all it is 11:59 p.m. The clock ticks, boom, 12 midnight, and it's a new day, a new year. And I was living for that second though, y'all. I was just ready for 2023 to be over and feel like I was going to get a fresh start in 2024. And let me tell you what happened on January 1st. I got a phone call, and the phone call was very devastating. My family, my extended family, I call her my sister. She's a very, very close friend of mine, lost her son, 14 years old, my nephew, and it happened very, very tragically. And that was how the new year began. And it was just a whirlwind of emotions. And I don't know. It was just a whirlwind of emotions. There's so much that happened in such a short time. And it was just a spiral. And it's felt like that literally since January 1st, with one thing after the other. Like literally one thing after the other. And the thing that I want to talk about, I'm not going to focus on everything in the in between because I don't want to get off the beaten path, but I do want to focus on how I feel and my mindset. And just as far as this episode, I want to talk to you, the listener, about taking care of yourself, how important it is to care for yourself. Because see, what I did and what I've done from January 1st, literally up through last week, was I justifiably, focused on taking care of others, being there for my sister, being there for my nephew, her other son, being there for my children who are impacted by it, being there for the community, being there for other people who were hurting. And I just realized that I wasn't taking care of myself because I felt like, well, this loss is personal to me, but who am I to feel like I can grieve more than his mama or his siblings or, just everybody. And I continued to pile things on my plate, trying to just care for everyone else and do things for everyone. And it drained me. It exhausted me. It literally just broke me down to a space and a place. Even as I'm talking, my voice, you can hear it's not crisp. There's this little raspiness and rattle to the back of it. And I know personally from experience that is stress, and it's in my belly and it affects my entire, it's so interesting because here I am desiring to use my voice as a testament to talk and, number one, share my experience and give God glory in how he's processed me and helped me through the process. But the way that stress manifests in my body is it starts to diminish my voice. But that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let that happen. So I wasn't taking care of myself, guys. And I just really want to pour it into you all, and share with you and maybe inspire or ignite something within you that reminds you that you matter. You matter, and you have to matter enough to yourself so that you do not lose yourself. You think about the whole, if you've ever flown, many of us have flown, but for those of you who haven't flown or have yet to fly, when you get on a plane, you get in your seat and you get settled and buckled in. And before, as the airplane starts to get ready for takeoff, the flight attendants, the captain, the pilot will come over the radio and he'll tell the flight attendants, prepare the cabin for takeoff. And so they get in their little positions throughout the plane so that everyone seated can see them. And they go through this, what do you want to call it? This routine or this procedure of steps of visually showing you what you need to do in case there's a problem with the plane. What do they say? If the cabin loses oxygen pressure, or if the plane, you need to exit the plane. There's all these procedures for how to take care of yourself. And one of the biggest things that stands out that they do is above your seat, they're tucked away in a compartment, but they say if the airplane loses cabin pressure, the ability to breathe, then these oxygen masks are going to automatically drop out of that compartment overhead in front of you. It's going to do that for everybody seated in your row and on the entire plane. What they tell you to do is you put your mask on first. Even if there is a little teeny tiny kid sitting next to you, they tell you, put your mask on first. Here's why. Because as much as you want to help that child sitting next to you, maybe that elderly individual sitting next to you, maybe just you're a good person and you just want to help the person next to you. They're struggling to get their oxygen mask on and they can't get it on. You are not supposed to reach over and help them before you help yourself. Because in that small time frame, where the cabin is losing that air pressure and you need oxygen, if you don't get your mask on first, you could black out, you could pass out, you could die. And if that happens, guess what? You are no good to help the person next to you. That is how I equate how this past 2 months of my life has gone. I was putting the oxygen mask on everyone else. And I was losing oxygen. I was losing wind. I was going down, y'all. And I had to get to a place where I literally physically had to remove myself from the environment so that I could focus on Takiya, so that I can take care of me. Now, what I've learned from this also, because this is habitual for me, and y'all pray for me. This is going to be the last time that I do this, that I go, I got to help everybody else first before I help myself. I will uproot myself from the atmosphere or from the environment and remove myself so that I can heal or recuperate or recover or rest or focus on myself after the fact that I've taken care of everyone else. And what I have learned is I got to stop that. I have to keep that imagery of that flight attendant telling me, put your mask on first. Take care of you. Do what you need to do for you. Get all the oxygen that you need. Breathe, inhale, exhale, relax, relate, release. Get yourself stabilized. And then you help those next to you. Okay. So that's how the last 2 months has gone. I just was ping-ponging all over the place. My nephew was murdered. My daughter had a manic episode. I've talked about my daughter in prior episodes that she's diagnosed bipolar depression. And she's going through some things in her life right now that are obstacles that she'll overcome. But you mix that with the loss of my nephew, her cousin, someone she's extremely close with, and the tragedy and the trauma of that mixed together was a recipe for disaster. And I brought her. Oh, I think I mentioned she was already, I think my last episode I talked about that she was already in home with me. So we're under the same roof and we're both processing the loss, trying to anyway. And we're processing being in the home together again after so many years. And we're processing the transition that she's in with leaving her career to go back to med school full time. And that's a huge transition. And I'm in the transition of leaving the past 14 years of entrepreneurship. I've sold my business. I don't think I've even publicly announced that. This is the first time I'm talking about it because there's so much that has happened from, again, January 1st to up through now, February 27th. So I'm working on the sale of my business. I'm working on leaving that to walk into full-time ministry, and not knowing what the heck I'm going to encounter. So that's a little stressful. And also my son, in the midst of all of this, he ends up Oh gosh, let's see. So I try to be really careful with sharing my story and my testimony and not embarrassing my kids. I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to embarrass or shame anyone. So sometimes I have to be very thoughtful in my process of speaking and sharing. So when it seems like there's holes or gaps, or I might dance around or talk past something, it's not that I don't want to share. Like I said, this is all about transparency, vulnerability, and authenticity. But I do have to protect the people that I love and respect their boundaries also. So we'll just say something happened with my son in the midst of all of this too. That was a life change for him. And right now, he has to take some steps to correct some things because of his actions. And it was something that, as Mama Bear, I had said, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Doing this will lead to this. And it led to that. And so that was stressful because it's like, oh my gosh, I told you not to do that. You did it. And now we have this. And see what I just said? I said we. I made his actions my problem. I made his steps that he took my issue. And that again is why I got so burdened and overwhelmed and distressed, because I was helping him put his mask on when I should have still just had mine on. So things happened with my son. Then after that, gosh, what else happened? It was so much, guys. And, the last thing that really just broke me, honestly, if I'm honest, it broke me, was, my daughter and I had it was a miscommunication. You know, once you go through something and you peel away the layers and you sit down and you think it through and you revisit it, you go, how do we even get over here? But we had a day of miscommunication and it blew up big time. Like, it was so bad and it was so traumatic and it was so triggering and it was so traumatizing to both of us, that it put me in this space where I just shut down. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I am so exhausted with this. I am so tired of this cycle. I am so just weary and over it. And it took that happening that I just said, I got to retreat. And so that's the place I'm at right now. Oh, I know what else it is. It's like it just keeps on coming. So after that, I then get, you guys have heard prior episodes. I talked about my overcoming a stalker and the stalking that I know of has stopped. And I say that I know of because there's such a thing as cyber stalking also. I know right now that the stalker, he does not have access to physically come to me anymore because of being what's the word? Again, I'm trying to be careful here because I have to respect boundaries, but because of being locked up. Okay, it is what it is. But there is the internet and things like that, and my podcast. So, I feel like I'm always being watched and listened to, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I said that to say I got an email with an update about what's going on with this case, and that was another level of, oh, okay, so we got this to still deal with, and it just caused me to go to a place of, I got to shut down. I got to shut in. I got to cut the world off. I need to just rest. I need to just heal. And I did that. But as I said, circling back, I realize and recognize and acknowledge and will do the fact that I have to stop going, and treating things like I have to help everyone before I help myself. It's not okay to keep pulling more of myself because I feel like I can, and then retreating to rest and restore and heal. And I'm not saying that anything is wrong with resting, restoring, and being healed. I am saying the manner and the pattern in which I'm doing it is like I go to war and I do all this stuff, fight. And then I need to go rest and sit down. And then I go do it again. And then I go rest and sit down. And it's like my body, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, is just so undone. And after this last time, I had a talk with God and I said, I can't keep doing this. I don't want to keep doing this. I want out of this cycle. And a lot of times we give the enemy way, and when I say the enemy, I mean Satan, the devil, Lucifer, the fallen angel. I feel like we give him way too much credit for some of the things that happen in our lives. Some of the things that happen in our lives are our fault. Let me just tell you right now, some of the things that happen in your life are your fault. And we cannot always blame it on the enemy. And this is an area that I am recognizing and taking accountability in, that, Takiya, you are doing this to yourself. And I had that epiphany as I was laying in bed last night. I was preparing an interview notes for another podcast that I'm going to sit on as a guest. And the host had responded and said to the notes and said she was really excited about the interview. And she said, you just created this dossier for future interviews, and your story has just got me awestruck. And she said, this is going to be really good for your book. And when she said that, it reminded me, oh yeah, a book. I was writing a book. I did start writing a book about all of this. I started it 2 years ago, and I started it in the process of me going through what I was going through. And see me, I'm a journaler. I don't know if that's a word. I journal. Journaling is my way of getting out what's inside on paper, and it's very therapeutic and healing for me. I've always been a writer ever since my childhood, and as I've evolved into adulthood, it's a way that I release and I can talk about everything, whether anybody else reads it, sees it, hears it. I do it for me because it's so therapeutic. But many of my journals have evolved into books, 6 of them. And I have a collection of other books that haven't been published yet just because of my journaling. And so 2 years ago, when all of this stuff started with the stalking and separating and leaving and divorcing my ex-husband, my way of dealing and coping was to journal. And that's my way of talking about it. And so when she said, oh my gosh, this collection, this dossier that you've written for the interview, this is a foundation for your book. And I just giggled. I was like, I have a book. I had completely forgotten about it. Like, so much stuff has gone on, so much distraction, that I totally sat down and forgot I was writing a book. And so last night when I laid in bed, I went into my notes and I opened up those journal notes, and I'm like 7 chapters in that I've already written. And so I'm like, well, let me just go back and start reading it and just see where I left off so that I can pick up. And I'll tell you what, as I was reading those chapters, I saw exactly the same pattern that I'd gone through since January 1st up through now in those 7 chapters from 2 years ago. The exact same pattern, helping everyone else in their needs and what they're doing and what they're going through. And understand me again, that's not wrong. That's not wrong at all. When you have a heart to help others, God is pleased with that. When you have a heart that wants to see others succeed, God is pleased with that. When you have a heart that you could put yourself last and think of others first, God is pleased with that. But what he is not pleased with is you not taking care of yourself. There's a scripture in Proverbs, Psalm 23, and it says, you fill my cup with good things, or my cup overflows. I'm botching it up. But my cup overflows. You guys go read Psalm 23. But a friend of mine a while back told me, she said, okay, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Yeah. She said to me, Takiya, when God says that he fills your cup with good things and it overflows, everything that's in the cup is for you. What overflows and runs out of it, that's for everybody else. And see, the mindset and the mentality that many of us have had or have is that my cup is full. I can share. I can give you some. Because if I give you some and I give you some and I give this person some, I still got something in the cup. It's not empty. But the problem with that is the cup is supposed to be, you know what? I'm doing it injustice to not go into that scripture. I'm going to go to that scripture so that I can give it to you properly. So just bear with me and we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive a little deeper in that. But what is in the cup is for us. We're not even supposed to pour that cup. If you can have that imagination of a cup and it's full and you want to help someone else out or give them some of it, you're not even supposed to pick it up and pour from that cup. What you are supposed to do is let the abundance and the overflow of that cup sitting still and it's being poured into by God, and the overflow and the abundance is for everybody else. And see, what I saw in revisiting the chapters of that book was I was pouring. I was pouring because my cup is full. My cup is really, really full and I've got enough for me. But then here's how that works. Tragedy happened on January 1st. That took a little bit out my cup. Something happened with my son. That took a little bit out of my cup. Something happened with my daughter. That took a little bit out of my cup. I was not supposed to be pouring. I was supposed to allow the overflow. And if I didn't have the overflow, then I'm supposed to let God handle it. All right, so I'm looking at Psalm 23 and 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. That's from the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible Version. And it just says that my cup overflows. Okay. So our cup is supposed to overflow. We're supposed to be full and we give from that. Matter of fact, when it's full and overflowing, we don't have to do anything. Just everything that's pouring out of us, it just flows into everything and everyone else and we can impact. And so reading those chapters, I saw the same patterns. You're just giving, pulling, pouring out of that cup. And then you end up exhausted and the cup ends up bone dry. And then you got to retreat and seek God and let him refill your cup. And again, spending time with God is always good. But what I'm saying here is he wants us to never be empty. He wants us to never be empty. He wants us to be so connected and so close to him, and really allow him to be so connected and so close to us that he's constantly pouring, constantly pouring, constantly pouring into us so that we stay full. And the way that that happens is we take care of us first. It's not selfish. It's actually selfless, because you deserve that. I deserve that. And here's the thing. When we are so erratic about taking care of everything and everyone else, we then are not allowing those people to seek the face of God like they need to, so that he can fill them up. You understand? What stood out to me as I was reading the chapters of my book that I forgot I was writing was that I was in that same place of just broken down and tired and beat up and bruised and crawling to this place of retreat to recover and be restored and refilled. And I remember while I was reading, this is what God said to me, and I wrote it in that book. He said, Takiya, your love for your family was killing you, and I needed to take you out of that situation. When I read that last night, it hit me. It hit me so hard, because here we are 2 years later, and I'm doing the same thing. My love for my family. Don't get me wrong. We're supposed to love. I adore my family. And when I say my family, I'm not talking about just my immediate family. I am talking about my children, my son, my daughter. I am talking about my parents, my mother, my father. I am talking about my siblings, my sisters. I am talking about my extended family, which are people that I got to choose or that chose me, that we may not be connected by blood, but we have a bond. I love, and I love hard, and I care for those that I love, and I don't want to see those that I love hurting. And if I can help them not hurt, then that's the heart that I have. But what I've got to stop doing is taking on everyone else's hurt and hardships and thinking that I can make it my own because I'm strong enough. I am strong. That's what God's word says. When we are weak, he is strong. In our weaknesses, his strength is made perfect. So when I take the things that I endure and go through with God, and I say, Abba, Father, Daddy, I'm just tired. I'm just weak. I'm just weary. He's like, I got you. You're spending time with me. You're in my presence. You're talking to me. I'm going to keep your cup filled. However, it is not up to me to try to be strong, not even for myself or for anyone else. And that's where I've been getting it wrong. And that is where I've got to change it. That is where any listener that can relate, you've got to change it. You've got to change it, because I recognize now the place that I was at 2 years ago that I wrote about in that book. I actually was dying. I was on my way out of here because of the amount of stress and trauma and turmoil that I was going through. It was physically breaking my body down. And the beauty of that was God connected me with a holistic physician, chiropractor, doctor, who put me on a program that he was just launching that involved supplements and prayer and good eating and habits that I was supposed to take with me for a lifetime. And I did it. I started healing from the trauma. I started healing from the stress. I got healthier than I have ever been in my life. And then I picked up everyone's issues again. Shame on me. Now I give myself grace. Understand that. I'm not beating myself up. I'm not beating you up. I am telling you what I know to be truth and taking accountability for where I've gotten. And I'm telling the Lord, we won't do this again. I won't do this again. I understand, God. I need to take care of Takiya. Let me tell you what I did this morning before I got on this podcast. I took my dog to doggy daycare and then I came back home and I'd left my music playing. I left some worship music playing. And when I walked back in my home, worship music was on. So I just started worshiping. I started worshiping, praising God, thanking God. And almost immediately I felt his presence. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, when I worship is so intimate to God and with God and for God. And because it focuses on whatever's going on in your life, the problems, the distractions, work, the busyness of life, when I begin to worship, none of that matters. It all disappears because when you have the heart of a true worshiper, your heart can't but help focus and be thankful and grateful to God for anything and everything that he is and has done and will do for you. Worship is about putting the focus on God. And if you can truly focus on God, then you're not thinking about anything else. And so I just started to worship and immediately I felt his presence. I felt his touch. I felt the weight of his glory come upon me. And I walked over to my mirror. I have this, full length mirror that you can, when I get dressed, when I be getting all fly, that I can make sure I look good in. And I walked up to the mirror and I felt compelled to look myself square in the eyes in that mirror. And I talked to myself and I told myself, Takiya, you matter. Takiya, you have got to take care of yourself. Takiya, you are worthy and deserving of being loved, even if that love comes from no place else but yourself. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm loved. I have such amazing friendships. And even if I didn't have people on this earth that love me, God does. That's more than enough. But I have to love myself. And a lot of times we don't exemplify that love to ourselves by doing things that are debilitating and disrespectful and dishonoring and distressful to ourselves, like not taking care of ourselves first. We've got to take care of ourselves first. And I stood in that mirror. I talked to myself for probably a good 10, 15 minutes. And I had so many positive things to say to myself. And then, y'all, this is going to sound real silly, but I don't care. I don't care. I leaned in and I hugged the mirror like I was hugging myself. That is the kind of love we have to give to ourselves. You're deserving of love. You're deserving of respect. You are deserving of peace. You are deserving of so much joy. You deserve to heal. You deserve to live a life free of your past tormenting you and telling you the opposite of what God says. You do. Those are the things I told myself this morning. And guess what? I believe it. Every bit of it. I believe it. Here's the difference between believing and receiving it. You have to put action to that. You have to know it. You have to do it. Okay? I have to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it now. Day one, winning. So take care of yourself. That is the title of this episode. I didn't know what it was going to be. I really didn't plot and plan out how I was going to talk about it. But as I've said in the past, my time talking about behind this smile and what I endure and what I go through is therapeutic. I do this for me, y'all. So I didn't even know that. That's such a revelation of God right there. I did this podcast because I thought I was going to help other people. And I'm sure it is helping people. But this is something that I'm doing for Takiya. This time, talking, telling, sharing, being vulnerable, sitting in the silence, recording. This is therapeutic for me. It's taking care of me. And again, remember, you've got to take care of yourself. So I will leave you with this before I sign off. What I shared with you in Psalm 23:5. Let your cup overflow. Stop giving of everything in the cup. Because see, here's what happens when you have that cup. You have a cup, and I want you to visualize this. Like, I have a routine that I do for the most part every morning when life is not chaotic. I have a cup of hot ginger tea, and I like to curl up in my media room with my Bible and that hot ginger tea in this big oversized chair. And that's my devotional time, and that's my God time. And that's just my before the day starts time. And so if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, guys, I'm going to go left field for a minute here. Speaking of coffee, so listen, I'm super excited about this. I started drinking coffee, I guess, about 2 or 3 months ago. And I'm so excited about it because I couldn't drink coffee. Like, caffeine in my system, it has me wired like a 2-year-old on like crack. Okay, I said it. But it has me like wide open, and I get jittery and I get shaky, and I just could not do coffee without paying for it. Like, I literally could drink coffee at 6 a.m. and I would not be able to fall asleep until 6, 7 the next morning. Like, it's wild. So anyway, I'm super excited because I start taking a supplement that apparently counters that caffeine. And it's a really good supplement that is something that's healthy, but I can drink coffee. And I love like all these. I'm a coffee snob now. Woo woo. I can drink all these flavored coffees and mochas and macchiatos. And I don't mess with the espressos yet. I feel like I'm scared. So anyway, derailed. I was going left field for a second. But if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, I want you to imagine what you do when you pour that cup of coffee or that cup of tea in the morning. You have your routine. You go into your cabinet, you pull your cup or your mug out, you set it down, you turn that Keurig or that coffee pot or that tea kettle on, and you heat that water, and then you brew. You do what you need to do to make that. And then either one of two things is happening. You have your automaker where, because you took the steps to prepare to make that cup of coffee or tea, that hot water begins to stream and pour down into the cup. And it begins to create what's necessary to get the end result of what you wanted, your hot tea or your coffee. And for most of us these days, there's, the Keurig or any kind of, I use Keurig, so that's why I'm saying that. And there is settings that you can choose that tells you how much you want the cup full, right? 4 cups, 6 cups, 8 cups, 10 cups for my, fighters out there. And you set that setting so that it fills your cup. Okay. And it's going to stop at just the right amount. It's no different with God and the time that you spend with Him when you prepare to take care of yourself in that moment, to take care of you really. He has all this routine, whatever your routine looks like. So we talked about my routine. I said, I get up, I have a hot cup of ginger, I go sit in my media room by the window, I open my Bible, and I get into the Word of God, sipping my cup. God has a routine for each and every one of us, a relationship, a friendship, devotion, a way that we do things. When we are sitting or taking that time for ourselves and spending time with God, whatever that looks like for you, I'm not telling you there's a perfect recipe. Some people do it driving in the car on the way to work. Some people do it late at night before bed. Some people do it through the day on lunchtime, whatever. It's a relationship. It's a relationship, and every relationship is built differently. You do what works for you. But in that time, God honors that, and you've taken the steps necessary and needed, and you've pushed the button to get your cup filled to the full. And He pours into you. He pours into you. He pours into you, and He fills you. And you get into a place where you get so full and you have so much of Him, then it spills out. And then it can touch others. It can give to others. It can overflow in abundance to others. But when we get distracted and we're trying to do it for everyone else, our cup gets emptied. We're not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. You're not going to do that anymore. Our cup runneth over. That's what the KJV, King James Version says. Our cup runneth over. Take care of yourself. Stop emptying the cup. Stop pouring from your cup. Stop scooping and handing what's in your cup over to everything and everyone else. Stay focused, stay filled, and let the overflow handle what it needs to. Because remember, they have a responsibility to get their own cups filled. Thanks for listening in. I'm Takiya LaShawn, and this is the end of this episode for Behind This Smile. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. Please help me to continue to spread the message of hope, encouragement, and inspiration by sharing my podcast with your friends, family, loved ones, and complete strangers. Someone needs to hear what has been said today. Like, follow, share, subscribe, and download on all platforms for Behind This Smile with Takiya LaShawn.